Okay, so just going to show you an example now of how to draw a stem and leaf diagram. Okay, so stem and leaf diagrams are very important for the junior cert and also onto the leaving cert. So you really need to be able to draw a stem and leaf diagram. Okay, so to show you how to do this, we're just going to do an example. All right, so if we look at this example here, it says here are the marks obtained by 20 students in a maths test. So we have 20 students here, okay, and this is the marks that they're after getting in a maths test. So this first student here has gotten 70, this student here has gotten 100, this last student here has gotten 48, okay, so there's 20 students there and that's the results that they get. And we want to turn that data here and we want to put it into this thing here, which is called a stem and leaf diagram. Okay, so the first step I've already done here, the first step is to draw the stem. So this is the stem here, okay, which is basically just like the stem of a tree or of a leaf, okay, just two straight lines going down like that. All right, so the first thing that we have to do here is we need to fill in the numbers into the stem. So the numbers that you fill into the stem are the tens of these numbers. Okay, so if you look at it here, we don't need anything in the teens because no student got anything in the teens. All right, so we don't need to put a 1 here. We don't need to put a 2 here either because no student got marks in the 20s. Okay, so we don't need a 2. But we do need to start here with a 3. Okay, because we do have a student in the 30s. Okay, we also need a 4, which will represent the 40s. We need a 5, which will represent the 50s. 6 for 60s, 7 for 70s, 80s, 90s, and then a 10 then, which will represent the 100s. Okay, so that is the stem done. And now we need to go here to do the leaf part of this. Okay, so this is quite easy. So first of all, here we have the 30s, and we only have one student who got in the 30s, and they got 32. So to represent 32, you just put a 2 beside it like that. Okay, so that 2 does not mean the number 2, it actually means 32. Okay, because it's there. So that's the only student that got into 30s. Moving on then now for the 40s. Okay, so we had a student who got a 40 exactly, so that would be represented by a 0. As you can see here, we have 2 students who got 46. So to represent those 2 students, we would say 6 like that, so that would represent 46. And then finally we got a student who got 48, so that would be represented by an 8 there. Moving on to the 50s then, we only had 2 students who got into 50s. All right, we have a 2 there, which is 52. And then we have a 57 here, so that would be represented by a 7. The 60s then, we only had 1 student who got into 60s, and that's this guy here who got 61. So that's just 61. Okay, and now we have loads of students who got in the 70s. All right, so we had a student who got a 70. We had a student who got 71. We had 2 students who got 72. Okay, we had a student who got 76, and finally we got a student who got 77. Okay, so it's very important that you remember, guys, that this does not mean the number 2. This means that a student got 72. Okay, the 80s then, we had 3 students who got 86. Okay, 1, 2, and 86, 3 there. So we had 3 students who got 86, and then finally we had a student who got 89. All right, and then finally then moving on to the 90s, we had 1 student who got 98, and then we did have 1 student who got 100. So to represent 100 here, we would just put a 0. So that is how you do a stem and leaf diagram. Okay, so if I was to, for example, circle this 7 here, okay, that does not mean a 7. Okay, that means that a student got 77. Okay, so that is the first part of doing a stem and leaf diagram. Okay, now the next thing that you must remember to do all the time is you need to remember to do a thing called a key. Okay, and you might remember that maps have a thing called a key, okay, which tell you what different symbols mean and everything. So the key is you just need to tell whoever's looking at your stem and leaf diagram what these numbers mean. Okay, so we know that this 7 here means 77 marks in a test, okay, but it doesn't say that at all. So you just need to describe what it means. So to do that, you pick any random number in here. So I'm going to pick 57, for example. So that would mean a 5 line 7. Okay, so what does that, so that represents 5 line 7. So that actually represents 57 marks. Okay, that's what that actually means. So the key is just where you tell the reader or whoever's looking at your diagram what these numbers mean. Okay, and you must always include the key. Okay, so that is how you make a stem and leaf diagram. And one very important thing, if you look, these numbers, they're all in order. So the smallest number goes first, so the 70, and then you get bigger. Okay, if you look here at the 40s, once again, 40, the 0 there had to go first, then the 2 6s, and then the 8. So these numbers here need to be in order all the time. But that is all you have to do to draw a stem and leaf diagram.